So hello everyone and welcome to our presentation today. My name is Piers Matthews, I'm the CTO for MQ Digital. And today we're going to be talking about the Power Platform, unlocking end-to-end solutions and winning with the Power Platform. What I'm going to take you through today is capability overview of what the platform has, how the platform fits together. I'm going to walk through some real-world scenarios and demonstrations that we've put together to show you guys the kind of capability and how you put solutions together with this innovative platform from Microsoft. So introducing the Power Platform, there's a couple of things that have happened quite recently, and certainly even before that, that have changed the way that we probably want to approach business. So what we are finding is that process automation is starting to become key. Now more than ever, businesses have to find new ways to reduce the cost of trading, improve efficiencies and automate everywhere, remove their paperwork to enable remote work, and have solutions that are easy to stand up and natively run up in the cloud. We believe that technology is going to play a vital role, but when we deploy technology, what we're talking about here is things that are going to be high speed to deliver and hopefully low cost is everything. So we're able to get these solutions up and running quickly. We're finding that consistently before COVID times and obviously accelerated now, what customers are after are solutions that are quick win, that automate existing processes, that simplify the work that they do, that fit their processes. And this is one of the key aspects. It's no good just having a solution in a box that's a specific solution. It's about being able to take an existing process that a customer has and be able to automate and build around that very specific processes. So the tools you need to be able to adapt for that type of situation. We need to be able to deploy these solutions easily, and we need these solutions to be able to work without any hassles. So what is the Power Platform and what problems does the Power Platform solve for us? So the first thing is the Power Platform is a great fit for any of those paper forms solutions that you've got in your environment. This is where people are filling in HR forms or expense forms or any process in your business where paper is changing hands. That obviously doesn't work in a remote world anymore, and we need to look to digitize and automate those processes. Those can even be things like Excel documents that are sent around as attachments into emails. These are processes that typically involve people inside, so employees, in the organization between, for example, operations and finance, but even as we start to extend out into the customer landscape. The Power Platform also provides us the ability to visualize data, to be able to take that data, visualize it on dashboards, and make decisions, whatever system that data comes from. But more specifically, being able to, these processes that we automate, we're going to be able to visualize the data that is captured as part of this process and the processes themselves, so we can make key decisions and look for areas of improvement and efficiency in our business. Common workflow needs. So when we talk about common workflow needs, what we mean is human to human workflow, as well as system orchestration, taking data from a human, getting it approved, pushing it into a downstream system and moving that along. That's what we mean, common workflow capabilities. And finally, the Power Platform provides us this capability that I call embedded smarts. So this is the ability to take a lot of the work that Microsoft has been doing in the advanced AI intelligence space, cognitive services, and bring that directly into our applications. We should be able to have bots that we can use to interact with our processes in conversational user interfaces. We should also be able to do things like automatically pick data out of streams and figure out what to do that, to be able to classify if somebody is happy or sad, if they're positive or negative about a message that's going out into the market or through our application. If we look at the types of solutions, I've come up with some examples that I put on the screen just to take you through some of the types of capabilities. So on the left, we're looking at, for example, field workers. So what are field workers? These are guys that are out there that are, for example, interacting with a patient and capturing information. Maybe it's a salesperson who wants to take a new order, or maybe it's a service engineer who needs to fix something for one of our products that is in the field. So these field workers need to be able to have quick mobile solutions to interact, to capture, to get instruction, and to act on that instruction. An example that I've got on the screen here may be an auditor doing an inspection on a site. Kiosk solutions. So this is where there's no human touch involved. What we want to do is be able to, for example, create a solution that lives in a kiosk somewhere, and a person's able to interact with that solution and provide us data. The obvious one that you've seen around is the visitor check-in as a classic example. HR forms. So as we start to digitize some of our processes, we want to be able to take some of those traditional processes that maybe we haven't got a big ERP or HR system, and what we want to do is be able to digitize those. A leave form is a typical one. An expense claim form may be another type of form. And the last one, on the right over here, what we talk about is automation of IT assets. So what we found, for example, now is people have rapidly rolled out capabilities like Teams and like Office 365 and other components. And what the Power Platform allows us to do is potentially automate some of the work around it as we try to establish some governance and some control. So we have the ability to use the Power Platform to automate that infrastructure provisioning and automate, for example, Teams creation in our environment. Really what we're getting at here is the capability of the Power Platform is very wide and very broad, and we have the ability to automate many of your business processes in the technology. It's important to understand what the analysts think of the platform and where this platform lies in terms of the rest of the market. So we're in the safe hands of the Power Platform because according to Gartner and to Forrester, the Power Platform is top right. So if you look at where Microsoft is landing, really top right in what we call low-code development platforms. What is a low-code development platform? What we're talking about is where we don't have to build C# or Java applications, code ground up all the way to the front end. What we want is drag and drop interfaces. And the low-code notion of this is we should be able to have power end users or makers or citizen developers build these applications, because where the code bit comes in will be things like putting in formulas, which is the same type of application that you'd be using in Excel when you put an Excel function or formula in. So Microsoft sits top right, which is quite amazing considering that this platform has only really been around for about 4 years in terms of where we are today. So they've rapidly leapfrogged some of the leading players in the market and ended up in the top right quadrant over there. So what is the Power Platform? What capabilities does it have if we break it down, and what are its components? So I like to think of the Power Platform as being a couple of things. Data, so this ability to visualize and analyze data. Apps, the ability to have user interfaces, automations, workflow and process, and smarts, intelligence built into the applications. So if we look at the components we have there, we have Power BI. So Power BI is a visualization tool that many of you, I'm sure, have heard of. This allows us to take data, analyze it, produce intuitive dashboards, and then action those analytics that we produced. Power Apps provides us user interface. So this is the screens, the forms that users interact with on their mobile device or in their desktop applications or tablets to be able to kick off and engage a process. Process or Power Automate, previously known as Microsoft Flow. This is the workflow engine behind the scenes that moves data from one user to another user in a business process, but also has the ability to interact more deeply with underlying platforms in our environment. And Power Virtual Agents, this provides us that bot user interface to interact. Underneath that, we've got some core capabilities, which I'll touch on. Data connectors allow us to talk to other systems. AI Builder allows us to design AI interfaces or AI capabilities and put them into our platform. And then the Common Data Service, which is a data model. I'm going to delve into these a little bit deeper each before we get into the individual demos that I've prepared for you. So first, looking at the Common Data Service. I put this one first because it's really a foundational element to what Microsoft has done in the 365 estate. So what is the Common Data Service? Really, the Common Data Service is a central data store that contains a set of data models that when we put data in this data store, it spans the entire breadth of the 365 estate. So that allows us to interact with that from the Office 365 world and from everything in the Dynamics world. What it does is it comes with a set of pre-built but extensible data models for common entities. So for example, it's got an account entity that defines all the types of fields that you would want on an account, things like address fields and so forth, that we can then extend and make our own. So it really gives us that rapid ramp up to use. It provides the ability to define rules and workflows directly on top of that data model and have those rules and workflows interact. Doesn't matter which application or which interface that you're putting data into the system for. It allows us to rapidly generate interfaces and applications with what we call model-driven Power Apps, which I'll dive into later. And lastly, it's the core foundational element used in the Dynamics applications like sales, so your sales engine, service, and your field servicing, marketing, as well as your operations capabilities. So think about this as being the central data store that we can then interact with that has pre-built rules, governance, and workflow around it that allows us to essentially share data between the different workloads in our environment without having to marshal information from one place to another. Power Apps. So Power Apps is the one that many people are familiar with. And when we think about the Power Platform, a lot of people just associate it with Power Apps. So let's talk about Power Apps and what that is. So Power Apps allows us to create fast, model-driven application, highly customized, what we call canvas apps, and external-facing applications, which are for external customers to interact with. So if we have a quick look at model-driven apps, these are applications that are easily generated from a common data model. So the common data model that we spoke about in the Common Data Service, what this allows us to do is with a component-focused approach, click some buttons and very rapidly generate a user interface to capture data into that model with all the pre-built rules available to us, and then deploy that interface to be consumed from a mobile application or in the browser application. These are typically associated with Dynamics 365 use cases, being sales, services, and marketing. A great example of this, for example, could be a new client onboarding application in a mobile application. We might have a salesperson on the road who wants to capture a new client and quickly take an order, and then have that kick off a process in the back end where our client management teams or operations team can process and complete the onboarding task and the order. That is a great example of where you would want to build a model-driven app. When we do build model-driven apps, there's a high-level process. You model the business data, define the process, and you very rapidly compose the application. We have this idea called Canvas applications. Canvas applications slightly different to model-driven apps. These applications provide absolutely full control of what that end user experiences is. Very fine control, not just in colors and fonts, but also individual rules between the screens. So it takes longer to build, but you get a lot more control about what that screen looks like and how that interface behaves. It also allows us to interact with data, not just in the common data model, but also any external data sources that we connect the system to. Things like SharePoint lists and other data, so Azure databases, for example, you may want to be able to connect to, or external systems, third-party systems. For example, even Salesforce.com, we can build an interface and interact with that if you so chose. When we talk about portals, portals is this idea of saying, if I've built a Power application, maybe what I want to do is create a Power portal where my end users, my clients, my suppliers, and my partners have the ability to have a login, get into that portal in a sort of an external scenario, and interact with the business processes that we have inside of a business. So for example, a self-ordering channel, we could do that over there. We could have a customer request a field service agent to come out and visit them and correct whatever problem they were having on site, or to visit them in a healthcare type situation, for example. These things directly engage that common data model and fit together with the rest of the estate. Power Automate. So if we look at Power Automate is really one of the great things behind the Power Platform. Power Automate is the thing that drives a lot of the capability that we have today. It is what we call our human workflow and system orchestration tool. So human workflow, as I explained, this is processes that we have in our business, things like approvals, things like escalation when certain criteria are reached. This is what Power Automate will do for us. But more importantly than that, it also provides system orchestration. So it allows us, for example, to take data out of a SharePoint world, push it into a database, get some feedback on that from a third-party system, and then, for example, update a finance platform. Power Automate provides all of that. Interestingly, of how Power Automate does this, Microsoft's enterprise-grade integration technology stack is Logic Apps in Azure Cloud. Power Automate is actually built on top of the Logic Apps engine. And in fact, you can take your Power Automate flows and export them and import them into Logic Apps for really deep, low-level integration should you choose to do so. Power Automate comes with 300 plus, 315 plus, thereabout connectors. And what these connectors allow us to do is obviously to talk to everything in Microsoft land, all of the cloud technologies and many of the on-prem technologies, but also hundreds of third-party SaaS and on-prem platforms. So for example, there's connectors available today that allows you to directly interact with SAP on-premise to be able to push data into what we call SAP BAPIs directly from Power Automate. So really powerful over there. It has a visual designer. So even though I've mentioned a whole bunch of technical capabilities, what's really important to understand is this is designed so that Power users have the ability to build this, as well as give developers the ability to rapidly build out solutions if they choose. Power Virtual Agents. So sometimes what we want to do is we don't want the user interface that we create to be tied to a web application or mobile application. Sometimes we want people to be able to kick off a business process, start a business process, or even respond to a business process in a chat. So this is typically what we call a bot or conversational interface. These bots can be easily created with literally no code. This isn't even low code. This is no code. And the reason Microsoft has done this and created it as a no-code environment is the theory behind this is that the best people to design a conversation flow are the domain experts, the people who understand their business process in business. They should be able to build this quite rapidly and hand it over to the team to move into production as a chatbot. Now, these bots can be published into Teams, your public-facing website or intranet sites, as well as social channels like Facebook to be consumed. These are specifically have the ability to integrate with those Power Automate flows. So for example, what you may want to do in your bot is you may want your bot to ask a couple of questions about creating an expense, and then have that bot, once we've captured the data, kick off a Power Automate flow to go and create the expense in the downstream system, as well as kick off whatever approval processes need to happen. So these tools fit together very nice and neatly. RPA. So if we look at RPA, this is really a fairly new advent from Microsoft. And this has recently gone to generally available, so it's public available, and we can actually use it now, no longer in preview. So what RPA is from a Microsoft perspective is what we call UI flows. So what UI flows allow us to do is either in person, in other words, on the screen while the user is logged into the computer, or unattended, so happening executing remotely in the server. What RPA allows us to do from a UI flow perspective is to interact with applications directly through that user interface, whether they be web-based applications or Windows or terminal-based applications, these legacy applications, to be able to interact. Why this is useful is you may have a legacy application that you need to modernize. You need to build a mobile app, for example, on top of that legacy application. And maybe it's difficult to do traditional integration because maybe there's no APIs available. This is where RPA can assist. It can help automate some of that process flow. What we found in RPA land is commonly attached to RPA is the idea of artificial intelligence. Well, artificial intelligence, through the workflow capabilities, has the ability to change the direction that we go as part of a typical RPA process. So a great example of this from an AI perspective may be the ability to have a form be uploaded by a user, automatically scan, running a machine learning model, pick up relevant fields of that form and push it into a downstream legacy application or other application that we have in our environment to process that form. So that might be an expense claim, a receipt. It might be an invoice from a customer in an accounts payable type scenario. So RPA gives us the ability to drive and automate those user interfaces. So if we look a little bit at AI services, RPA and AI services go quite nicely together. Microsoft has a very mature estate in the Azure Cognitives landscape. This is a mature offering. What they have done is they've taken all their AI capabilities. They've got pre-built utility services for traditional AI type processes that we can now directly drag and drop and build into our Power Platform scenarios. So good examples of these are things like form processing, the one I explained, but even a business card reader, sentiment analysis, text extraction, binary classification, the ability to look at data and make a decision as to which bucket this person particularly falls into. Sentiment analysis is one I'll show you. It's a great example of being able to figure out if there's a positive or negative element to the solution that we're building. Last thing before I get into the demo, hot off the press, Microsoft announced yesterday, they've acquired a platform called SoftMotive. So what really SoftMotive is, it's been in the market for about 15 years. It's an RPA WinForm driving solution. It provides additional capability to the Microsoft RPA stack, and it's available today for no additional cost now for Power Platform users who have signed up for some of the RPA capabilities in Power Automate. I've on my LinkedIn just posted out the links to the instructions on how to get this up and running in your environment. What it adds to the Microsoft platform is firstly shows how serious Microsoft is about getting RPA enabled in their platform, but it adds some specific capabilities around SAP, driving SAP UI. And the one that I'm really interested in is obviously the ability to interact with green screen or legacy terminal screen systems, Java and Citrix and so forth. So great news, that one.
So Piers, we've had a few questions just come through while you've been talking. It might be good to answer them now while it's a bit fresh. So one of the questions is, do the apps render as mobile and web apps?
Yeah, 100%. So when we build Power Apps, we have the ability to find a Power App interface that is a mobile application in the Canvas app, as well as a web-driven application or a desktop type application interface. So we can do both in the platform. So certainly available in the platform to be able to do that. Absolutely.
Awesome. And the second one is, how do we decide when to use RPA and when to use integration technologies?
Okay, that's a good question. It's a big and a loaded question. The way I like to look at it is as follows. RPA is a great solution when enterprise integration isn't an option for you at that point. Why would it not be an option? Often because there's no SDK or way to interact with the legacy platform, or because you're trying to get a process up and running quite quickly. Very often what we see in the RPA land, and when I talk about RPA, specifically focusing on driving the user interface, what we find is businesses trying to work out the specific process, get it working before they move to enterprise integration. The great thing is because a lot of those flows that I explained can be exported into Logic Apps, it's quite easy to start to move some of the business process into the enterprise integration technology. So really it depends on the scenario that you're facing, and it's something that you have to weigh up the pros and cons of using the two different platforms. Absolutely put my hand up and not say that RPA is the answer for everything, but it does definitely help in certain scenarios. We do want to try and move towards enterprise integration type solutions when that is the type of use case that we're targeting.
Great. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see these demos, hey?
Thank you. So I'm going to, excuse my mouse works, crack into a couple of demos. So the plan over here is to show you a couple of scenarios of real-world things so you can get an understanding of how we build these applications and how they fit together. The first one I'm going to show you is a thing called the MOQ check-in app. And this is an example of a quick application that we're able to spin up literally within a week. I mean, it was probably 2 or 3 days, get the application out into the market for our customers, but also for MOQ Digital in response to COVID-19. And really, this just highlights the speed that you can build an application up in the platform. So this application built for a brand new business scenario that cropped up. This is this idea that people would be working from home, and we need the ability to make sure that they're healthy, that they're doing okay, and that we're tracking them accordingly. So in this check-in app, you'll notice I've been able to pull, that's not really my photo. It's I've uploaded a slightly more handsome version of Piers for this one, stock photo. That pulls directly from Active Directory, showing the connectivity in the Power Platform. So I'm going to go ahead and check in, and I'm going to say in this particular case, how are you doing? I'm doing well. Our business has decided I want to know about my family. They could be doing a little bit better. Home education is difficult. I'm sure those parents like me who've had to do this have found that quite challenging. We'll go next. Is there anything you need help with? Not particularly. Where am I working from this week? So really questions that we can be customized and answered in the home office. Click next. Ask me if I've got any comments or suggestions. Just a couple of other things. Little pop-ups, really easy to do. Great. App. And I'll go ahead and I'll click submit. And that will go ahead and create that record and kick off any of the business processes that I may have behind that. So one of the things we want to see is, well, where does that data go and what happens with that data in an example? So the person submitted the check-in app. That check-in app obviously needs to go somewhere and do something. So over here in Teams, you'll notice that I've got a Teams channel called my MOQ Crisis app. And importantly, any check-in that happens in the check-in app that needs somebody to have a look at because it's hit a particular criteria, we post that directly into that post or into that channel in Teams. As you can notice, that's been using Microsoft Flow to get that there. The idea being that somebody from our HR people and culture can see that pop up, phone the person, get on and help them. What's even more interesting is the ability to connect Power BI. So remember, Power BI is a visualization capability connected directly into that process and that data and be able to visualize what's happening over time. So in our little demo over here, we can see how many respondents, how many unique respondents, how often they return. So how often people check in, not every day, maybe every 6.7 days people check in. I have the ability to graph that very neatly and obviously drill into some of that information, for example, and have a look and see where people are working. I can highlight over that and see specific people where they're working for in a date and time. So that there's an example of a very simple application that was put together with the platform that was able to be deployed quite quickly. So that's the first one. The next one we're going to talk about is this idea of an expense claim. So for an expense claim, I'm going to show you what that looks like from an edit perspective, so how you'd actually go about building one of these things. While that's loading, imagine that we have a list inside of SharePoint that we're using for people to capture expense. So this is our data source. And in this list, we, for example, have the title, the category, how much it is, submitted, who's been claimed by, who the approver is. We should also have some kind of an approval status that lets us know if it's been approved and attachments for that expense. So a typical type of scenario that you may want to build an app. Now, the great thing about Power Apps is the ability to very rapidly scaffold. So if I click create an app there, it will automatically build a base UI connected to that data source that allows me to build my application. And Power Automate there allows me to build a workflow, and that workflow would fire as soon as the application is saved and the record is created. So if you go and have a look at that expense claim, this is what the edit interface of Power Platform looks like. Let me just zoom in on that a little bit for you. You can notice it automatically scaffolded up, And in my version of this, I've gone and customized a little bit of the colors and done some interesting things with the application. One of the things I may choose to do when I capture the application is, instead of just having a person have to create all that data and type it in manually, I may like to take a photo of the actual expense, put it in the platform, and have it automatically pull out the data on the field. And that's where AI comes in to help. So you can notice I've got this control over here. This is my forms processor control. If I wanted to insert one of those things, or a new one to create it, you'll notice this capability for AI Builder. I can go ahead and choose any of those AI capabilities, drop them onto my solution. What happens behind the scenes there, I pick a model that I've pre-trained, and I'll show you how that works just now, and that process can work. So this is really what that edit interface looks like. You'll notice it's low code or no code. There's no code window that I have to interact with. I can put particular business rules if I wanted to on the form. You can have little conditions that say what fields data binds to, for example, if I wanted to. This particular binds to that field. I can put some formatting on it and so forth. So really designed to be easy. On the left over here, this shows me the different screens and how I may want to navigate through those different screens in the application. So that's what that edit interface may look like. So if I want to go ahead and run that application to show you what that quick expense claim looks like. And I've built this or designed this as a mobile facing type application. The idea being I want to run this in a mobile app. Obviously, I've rendered it out as such for you to have a look at over here. So here I can see all the expenses that I have. And if I went to any particular expense, for example, this Uber claim, I could go ahead and see that expense plus the actual receipt that had been uploaded for that claim. If I wanted to create a new claim, I can go ahead and click on the plus button. That will take me to that edit screen that I had. I don't want to type in any of the fields just yet. What I'd like to do is upload a receipt and go and analyze it. So here's a bunch of receipts I've just got on my desktop. Go ahead and pick that Uber receipt, upload that into the platform. And then what this is doing behind the scenes now, it's taking that receipt, it's passing it off into my AI model. My AI model is busy processing it, looking for the relevant fields that match the form that I've specifically said I want to look for this type of application, and it's identified data. So you'll notice it's very small. I'll show you just now in a zoomed in view. It has picked up 5 fields. It's identified where those fields are. And what it's already gone for me is automatically gone and mapped those fields to the title field, to the amount field, and to the expense date field. I then have to supply the data that I couldn't get directly off a form necessarily. I'm going to choose the category. This is travel, and the cost center I want to build this to, in my case, maybe the marketing cost center. I'll go ahead and I click save. And what that's going to do behind the scenes with the connector is obviously go and write that record into my list over here. So if I go ahead and refresh this list in SharePoint, we should see it appear at the bottom. And we see that that's appeared at the bottom with marketing, etc., waiting for the business process to kick off. So what I should see is that should then kick off the Power Flow that I've connected to the same list. And what that Power Flow is going to do, Power Automate Flow is going to do, is it's going to go ahead and it's going to kick off an approval process. So let's go have a look at what that may look like. I'm just going to refresh this over here. And what we should see is that there's a new flow that's been kicked off. That's this one over here. So if I go ahead and open that flow, in the running view, you can see a new item has been created. It does a couple of things. It creates the item in the list. It gets the manager. So this is doing a lookup on my profile to figure out in AD who's set as my manager. Then what it does is sets up an approver and a status field, and it starts the approval workflow. So I want to have a quick look at what that looks like in the edit view as well, maybe, to show you what would happen if you were building this. You'll notice that there's no code over here. I tell it which list I'm specifically talking to. I say that I want to get the manager based on the person who created it. I say that I want to update some fields in the actual form, so set who that approver is, set the approver person, etc. on that, and then obviously run through the process. So that's what it may look like when I'm running that process. So what that's going to do is go send an email to the person who's the approver, who I've got open here. This is this guy called Oken. So in Oken's email gets that approver. You'll notice what's great about this is in this particular approver flow, it allows me to have a card directly in my email. Don't have to switch out where I can go approve that if I want to. I can also click on the link, which will just take me directly to the list view so I can view the data that was submitted by the user for this expense claim. I can then go ahead and click approve. And when I click approve, I can give a reason. This was a great client meeting. So therefore, I'm going to let you claimed expense, I guess. And then I can go ahead and I can click submit. As soon as I click that submit button, I'm going to go ahead and update the process. And what we'll find then, if we go back to that flow that I had running, you'll see it's automatically gone ahead and completed that flow, gone through the process, it's been approved, it's gone ahead and let the creator, which would be Piers in this case, let him know, and it's update that status to approved. So really simple example of a situation that you can have with that. So one of the things we can also do is you may want to have a dashboard on top of that. And the great things about the Power Platform is how the different components fit together. So I, for example, can click on this over here, and this will go and show me some dashboards that I've produced. So maybe I'm a manager, and in that mobile application, I want to see what's happening with expense claims in the business. And what this has gone and done is embedded Power BI dashboards into the Power App interface, so I can go ahead and analyze that data if I wanted to. And obviously see the different values, how much money has been sent in individual cost centers. Obviously, that is created through a Power BI report. So you use a really simple Power BI report and just showing you how Power BI works really nice. This is already connected to the data set. If I, for example, wanted to add another graph or chart onto this, I, for example, could click a pie chart. I, for example, say I want to see status and I want to see status by amount. I go and add those in and very quickly makes that graph available or that chart available. I can then choose, if I wanted to embed that into my Power App interface so I can interact with it accordingly. So one of the questions we may have is, how does the AI Builder bit work behind all of this? So the AI Builder, what this allowed me to do is to take all those Uber receipts and build a model that was able to understand and recognize my receipts. So here's the model that I pre-created. Inside of this model, in the loads, you'll notice it gives me an example of a training document. If I clicked on details over here, you can see information when I actually created this a couple of days ago. You can see where I got the data from, and I trained this model with 10 images, so it was able to automatically figure out the fields. And what happens when you do that, it finds all the different fields. You then choose the fields that you want to use in your model, and you give them names and you pull those fields out. So they're available to be used either in Power Automate or Power Apps in the model. I could do a quick test if I wanted. So from my device, I could go ahead and upload a new receipt. Let's take this one from January. I can drop that receipt in. What that's going to do is automatically allow me to test the model against the new receipt and make sure that that model is still valid. And if it wasn't, I could upload that one into the training set and retrain that model and make it learn from an additional type of receipts if I wanted. So if you see in this case, it's picked up the supplier with a confidence score, it's picked up the total, it's picked up the month, it's picked up the day, and it's picked up the year. And that's how I created that. I just trained the model and pulled it into the application for usage. If we look at the other types of cognitive services that are available to us inside of the interface, there's a whole bunch of these things available, as I've previously said. So classification, forms processing we want to use, object detection, and so forth. One of the nice ones to have a look at, for example, is sentiment analysis. So if I click on sentiment analysis, I can build this into my application, but I can also test it out to see how it works. So I, for example, can say, this is a great demo, and I can see, is that a positive or negative statement? It's going to take a look at the statement and it's give me an answer whether or not that's positive. So that's overwhelmingly positive. It's a great demo. If I said this is a terrible, I know these are simple sentences, but just give you an idea of how it works. It's a terrible demo. We'll go ahead and tell me whether or not that's negative or not. And this is negative. You can even do things that are maybe combined. This is a terrible demo, but I'm very happy. Let's see if we can confuse it. Even with my bad spelling. Notice that it picks up that this is a mixed sentiment automatically. So it's able to figure out there's a positive and a negative statement, and therefore it's mixed. If I click on show details, it'll actually tell you that was a negative statement and that was the positive statement available over there. So those are the examples of the types of things you can do by embedding some of these cognitive services into your platforms.
So we've got a question on that one here as well while you're on this particular demo. So it's, let's say I would like to upload a receipt, which is a completely new provider. So the AI Builder doesn't have a template for it. What happens in that case?
So what happened in that case is, depending on how similar it was, you might get a recognition. So what we found in testing this is generally many of the receipts are quite similar. So if I trained this directly on Uber receipts because I wanted to quickly get the demo done, but certainly we've seen that, for example, if you take a standard set of receipts or invoices and you have quite a wide array, it is able to pick it up and train that. You can also have multiple models that are chained. So run it through one. If it doesn't work, run it through another. It doesn't work, run it through another. It doesn't work. It is a little bit of an art to train the models properly, to be honest, but it does work very well. There's also actually a specific one that isn't released yet coming out for receipts, specifically for this example that I've done, where Microsoft's got a whole set of pre-trained models for all different types of receipts. So we're expecting that one to come out soon, and we'll literally just drag and drop the cognitive services for receipts processing. Okay.
Okay, great. There's also another question that's come through. I thought the Power Platform was designed for power users and developers, but you're making it look easy. How do we control the usage of the platform so that it doesn't spiral out of control if the end users are building their own apps?
It's a great question. That's one I'd like to answer at the end, but I'll give you the answer to that just briefly now. So the Power Platform is designed for power users and for developers to be able to use to put these application scenarios together. Now, because it's a solution that allows these power users to quickly create applications, we obviously don't want an Access 2.0 or an Excel 2.0 where there's no control of these applications. Now, the Power Platform gives us the ability to control that. So there's a set of governance and environment controls that you can set up to say who can create these platforms, which environments, what types of applications they can write, what types of connectors that they can use. And we actually have another webinar coming up, not this one, but I'm going to be talking a little bit about governance and control and how that all works in the environment. It's a really key thing to make sure that when you take this into your customer base, that you actually set up those governance policies and rules to make sure that the right people are creating the right types of applications. And very importantly, I always say that your tier one core business applications, your end users can create that in a demo or test environment to get it working, but then you need to take that over to more traditional management of the life cycle of those applications, where you have tier 3 and maybe tier 4 applications, which are personal productivity or team applications, which you can provide those guys an environment to work in, which doesn't necessarily affect the rest of the business, but allows them to build, operate, and support themselves in those solutions. So really what's important is getting the right processes in place to make that happen. Okay. Cool. So jumping on. Now that I've got the whole expense claim thing, maybe one of the things I want to do is I would choose not to interact with this as a form. Maybe I'd like a bot, and I'd like to create that bot and publish it into Teams or onto my intranet type solution. So let's say, for example, I say over here, this is my little bot that I've built. I'll say, hi, and take a little bit of time. It's going to wake up, trying to act like a real human, hopefully. It says, hi, I'm a virtual agent. How can I help you? These are all the things I know about that I can assist you with. If you want to speak to a human, let me know and I'll escalate that to human. So let's say I'm going to say expenses. Notice that I spelled expenses wrong. My spelling's not great, but I was able to figure it out anyway, which is great. Okay, can I help you with expenses? What do you need? I've got two options over here. And what you'll notice, I've actually got this in the edit view just to show you how it works. Over here on the right, it's actually showing some trigger phrases or similar phrases it needs to try and match to. And then what it's doing is it's flowing through a message. And now it's asking me this question over here. What do you need? These are the two options that I've got. But because I've chosen an option, it gives me the option to click. I could also type in claim if I want to. I'm just going to go ahead and click claim over there because what I want to do is make a claim. It's then telling me provide a short description for your claim. Lunch with K. So that's what the expense claim description is. Now I want to know how much was the lunch in this case, $125. I don't know if that's a fancy restaurant we went to, okay? What date? It's quite clever. Let's say 2 days ago. So not giving a specific date, see if you can figure that out. Just quickly to show that, if I look at the variables for those techies on the line who may be interested in, you'll notice it's gone and figured out what 2 days ago was. The 20th today, so it's figured out 2 days ago was the 18th. which category. So let's say, for example, this is entertainment. Cost center, we'll put this under marketing. Now what it's gone and done is very simple. It's very simple flow. I've just captured all this data, displayed that data on the screen. Now it says, do I want to proceed with the claim? And this is where something really interesting happens over here. So what I'm going to do over here, this is going to go ahead. I'll say yes now, and you'll see what it's going to do is take all that data and pass it off to Power Automate Flow. So if I click yes, it's gone and done that. If I click on that link, I just want to show you what that looks like. You'll see that opens that flow model. This is the one that's just been kicked off or just been run. The data came in from Power Virtual Agent, what the specific data was, got my profile, figured out who I needed to save it under, created the item in the list, and sent the result back to the Power Virtual Agent. Now, because I'm creating that in my same data source, I'm creating it in my same expense management list, it's going to go ahead and it's going to kick off an approval process for that expense management. The exact same approval process that you saw before. You'll notice it's kicked off. Lunch with K is available over there. And if I went into Oaken's email, you'll notice over time, we get a new approval in here come in that I have to go and approve that particular expense claim, which has just popped up very loud in my ear. Please review Lunch with K. I can go ahead and click a reject in this particular case. Not business focus. Sorry. Sorry, K. I have to powder that on my own back pocket. And I can go ahead and submit that. So that gives you an example of how I can take an existing process or an existing user interface and very quickly mock it out into a bot. I can click publish, which will go ahead and allow me to publish that bot onto publicly facing web component, into Facebook, for example, or very often these days into Teams for direct interaction with our platform.
Okay, question on that chatbot has come through, P. With the chatbot, how are questions handled that the chatbot doesn't know how to answer? Yep. So if there's a functionality to capture the questions and the chatbot doesn't know how to assist with it, how does that work?
Yeah, so what you can do is you can escalate that into a human. So it has the ability to escalate that to an agent. And typically the way that that works is we create a channel, what's called a channel. And the channel, very often what we use today is the channel goes into a Teams, essentially a Teams post channel. So you can have people monitor and interact with that as well. You can also have that escalate that directly to an external person through some other means. So there are APIs, we can, if we want to build our own integration into it. But the standard way, escalate to agent and have that agent pick that information up, be able to chat through Teams directly with the bot and essentially take over from the bot in terms of that conversation. So by the way, I've said, did that answer your question? I'm saying yes. I have a little survey over here. I'm saying it was excellent. I was very happy with you, Mr. Bot. Thank you. Can I help with anything else? I'll just do a quick one over here, just conscious of time. I go ahead, expenses. I'm still spelling that wrong. I, for example, could say list my expenses. And this is a bit different. I'm not creating one. This is going to go do a lookup on that list, pull the information through for me. So I haven't bothered to format it. I just want to give you a quick view of what this kind of looks like. It's gone ahead, got that information from the list, and I've just dumped the example on my screen. Obviously, you could ask more pertinent questions. Do you want to see approved, not approved, and then format it a bit nicer. But just showing you kind of that capability that you get out of a bot in your platform. So what I wanted to show now was how RPA works. This is quite interesting. Philippe? So I just switched into a different environment. So what I've got over here is two types of RPAs. Remember, RPAs work in attended on unattended mode. Quite difficult to demo unattended mode because you won't see anything. So I'm going to show you how this works from an attended fashion and how this can happen. So really, there's one for web interaction and one for Windows Forms or apps that you can interact with on the desktop. So we're going to go ahead and look at one that I've got over here called Capture New Client. And I'm actually going to show you how you would create one of these things. And then it could be called directly from Power Automate or Power App and invoke that application. So firstly, over here, when you create one of these, you have to set up the inputs. So this is, I'm going to input with a legacy system or a screen. I need to say, what are the variables or the values I want to be able to put into that system. So I set those up. And because I'm going to test this, I'm just going to provide some samples, John Simpson 32500 Piers Matthews as my sample data sets. I then have to record and edit the steps, and then I can check what those outputs are. So just to show how this works, I've obviously already created this. I'm just going to sneakily go insert a new action. I'm going to say it's a recorder, and I want to go ahead and record a new application. I'm going to launch the recorder. It should pop up on the screen. Over here, I've got my little old school Windows Forms application. Apologies for being a little bit small. So this is client data form for a company called Shipping Central. So imagine we wanted to give our salespeople on the road the ability to have a mobile app and Power App, quickly capture some new client data and register it in our backend system, which happens to be a legacy Windows Forms driven system. This is a way that we could do that quite easily. So this is what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click the record button. What's going to happen now is it's going to start recording my interactions with the application. I'm going to choose inputs. I'm going to say the field I want to map is a field called first name. I'm going to go ahead and put it in that field. We'll go put first name. I'm going to say last name. I want to put it in that field. It's going to put last name in that field. I'm going to go ahead and put age in that field. Go ahead and put credit limit in that field. And then I'm going to go ahead and map the client owner or the salesperson, whatever it is, to Piers Matthews. Go ahead and click save. And what that's done, because I've clicked save, this old application, how it worked, it generated client reference number. And I might want to send that client reference number all the way back into the mobile application or over email and give it back to that customer. So if I go here and I click outputs, I select some text on the screen. I'm going to click that piece of text. It says, oh, that's a piece of output. What do you want to call it? Client ref. I'm not very creative today. And description client F. And go ahead and click save. And then I'm done. So that's obviously gone ahead and recorded that. It has failed over here because I've done this previously. Can't actually do two of these in one shot. But that was really just to give you an idea of what that experience may look like if you're going to go and record your RPA sessions. So that's what it looks like from a recording perspective, how you set it up. Obviously, this now creates a UI flow that I can then go ahead and call from any of my Power Automates or directly from my apps and interact and have that thing be created either in an attended mode or in an unattended mode on a remote server somewhere. So let's go have a look at what that may look like from a web perspective. So for a different flavor, I'm going to show you from a web perspective what that may look like if I run it. So remember my expense claim application, very fancy, hopefully quite nice. Maybe we've got a legacy expense management system. Maybe it's an InfoPath form running on the intranet, and we would like to automate the capture of the data into that old form from our new application because you don't want to rebuild whatever the backend process of that form is for now. So I'm just going to slow this down over there so it goes on the screen not too quickly and you can actually see what's happening. I'm going to run this test. It's going to launch my browser. So this is, I previously recorded this, so just to show you how the concept works. Preparing to run my test, navigate into MOQ's old intranet, the one we used to have, going to expense claims, opening up the expense claim screen, saying I want to create me a new instance of my old InfoPath form in this particular case. So legacy, going ahead and mapping in the business process. So automatically having that typed in, putting in the mobile number in that particular field, picking a date. And remember, these are all values we could pass in from a Power App if we so chose. It's going to put a description in. It's going to pick a category. And it's going to go ahead and ultimately type a number, and then we're done. So that's just an example of how the RPA capability works and how you could use that in your applications. So obviously, the idea being you can connect that into your applications and then work with it accordingly. The last demo or overview I wanted to show you is really that third scenario that I spoke about. And this is this idea that you could essentially have a Power App that provisioned a team for you. So this is the idea of using the Power Platform to manage some of your IT processes. So this is the request a team Power App. I'm going to go ahead and show you what that one looks like. So this one we've built up as a tablet-based interface. So it could be accessed from a tablet or desktop. I can go ahead and say, I would like a new team to be created. Go ahead and build that team. privacy settings in this particular case. So I want to go ahead and say that this is a public team that I want to create. Go next. Give your team a name. So let's say sales team. Sales team. I want to check the availability. Oh, interestingly, this team's already been taken. So the ability to use those connectors, we're actually going and we're checking teams to see, does this team exist? So let's look at sales. What else can we do? Let's go marketing event 101. Check availability. Pretty sure I haven't created that one before. It says the team is available. This is to run our new marketing campaigns. I'll check, obviously, business reason, we need a place to collaborate. Now, go ahead and click next. Now it's asking me to provide some information. Again, just showing behind the scenes what I'm happening over here is I'm actually embedded the connector to Azure Active Directory, and I'm actually able to do lookups against those people. So the owner, I'm going to make it myself in this case. There's another owner over here. Let's say it's Oaken. How many members? If I want to add in other members, I've just limited it to 2 for this sake. Let's go Michael, Yusuf in this case. Go ahead and edit him, and then I can click on the next button. So now what's happened is we've got all these teams added. I can go ahead and submit it. This is my request, and I can go and check the status. Here we see my Power App. It's showing me the status. Obviously, I've created a number of teams over here. It's telling me that one's been submitted and it's waiting approval. The question is where does that submission go? So to show you a different flavor, again, using the connectors, I can post this as a card directly into Teams, where maybe my IT admin team is sitting and they're able to pick up those requests and they can approve it. So this is a previous one that I created that came through. You can see it's come through. It's asking me to approve or reject that. This one will come through now. It just takes a little bit of time for the workflow to start up, kick off, and create it. Let's give it a second to do that. There it is. That's the one I've just created. So this is the marketing event 101. I can go ahead and say, I could approve that. Valid team. And that would automatically go ahead, then kick off the next step in my workflow, which would actually go ahead and create that team, put all those users as owners, and make it available in my environment for me. So what we've shown you over there, just to quickly recap, a couple of important things. We showed you the ability to use the Power Platform, and hopefully I've given you a taste of all the different features and how they can plug together, and really the power that the platform has. So the first thing is, I showed you an example of a quick mobile application for a new scenario. Credit, the check-in app. I actually didn't mention there, it also uses push notifications to prompt people to check in if they haven't checked in for a while. I've showed you an end-to-end scenario of an expense claim system where we're able to create a new expense claim system, use some of the AI smarts for forms recognition, train it, and then obviously have a bot as another way to interact with that particular process. I showed you RPA capabilities with the idea that RPA can help you potentially interact with legacy systems to push data in, get data out as part of your overall business process flow. I then showed you the Power Platform can be used for more than just traditional business scenarios. Even in our IT space, or things we wouldn't normally think of, we can use a Power Platform because it's so richly connected into the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem. We showed you the team provisioning application. One question we may have is, how do I get the Power Platform? This is the licensing question. So really, there's a couple of ways that the Power Platform is licensing, and licensing isn't super simple to understand, but I'm going to try to simplify it for you now. We have said we've got a follow-up webinar where I'm going to one of the key facets of the Power Platform and how do you adopt it, that adoption type strategy. Understanding licensing is one of those, but for a quick summary, you either get it through Office 365, so that's 365-centric licensing, as I call it. This is, you've probably already got the Power Platform. If you're on E3 or above with Office 365, you've got capabilities already in the Power Platform. Dynamics 365-centric, if you've got any of the Dynamics apps, Pro or Enterprise, so Sales Pro, Sales Enterprise, Service Pro, Service Enterprise, any of those, you've already got the Power Platform available to you. And if you've got none of that, you can also go ahead and buy the entire platform standalone for yourself. Those are the 3 entry channels, and you can obviously up the licenses, add additional capabilities, add additional capacity, add some more of the AI modules into it as you go through. So really there's 3 ways to get that. I think the key thing is that most of you, if you've got 365, you've probably already got a lot of what I've just shown you available to you to start building those applications today. And we've got 3 minutes left for any questions we haven't answered.
Yes, we've got a few questions that have come through.
Yep.
So first one is, could you confirm a Power App could be developed to allow a member/customer from your dynamic CRM to update their own membership profile with an approval step as well?
100%. You don't use the Power Apps that I showed you there. There's a component called Power App Portal, which uses similar interface, similar design interface, which is specifically to provide a portal for your customers to interact with the Power Platform. So you can do it. It's one of the key use cases. This is customer interaction on top of that common data store. Definitely can do it with the approval step involved as well. But like I said, the way to do that is that's the Power Apps portals. Cool. I would also just want to add on to that just briefly as an additional little bit. If your customers are licensed for the Power Apps themselves, in other words, in their own 365 tenant, you can actually share apps with them for them to interact with as well. So there is that option, but traditional broad customer base, don't know what they're licensed for. The answer is Power Apps portals.
Okay. There's also another one around, is there an inbuilt approval process for when a Power App user wants to publish a new Power App?
There isn't an inbuilt approval process, but one of the things I'll talk about in my next webinar is there is an extension onto the platform for governance, the Center of Excellence kit, which actually provides that approval process for you. What's interesting is if you want to know how Microsoft built the Center of Excellence, the entire Center of Excellence itself is essentially a set of Power Apps. So they've dog-fooded it themselves. They've used the Power Platform to build all of that Center of Excellence capability and governance process. So absolutely available through Center of Excellence. If you don't deploy Center of Excellence, not available to you.
Okay. What training options are available for the platform?
Yeah, great question. Many. Microsoft.com/learn or something like that. Can't remember the exact URL, but Microsoft Learning Domain. There is an unbelievable amount of content on trying to understand this platform, really from beginner all the way to expert user. We're talking hundreds of videos and courses and so forth. There's also an exam, MB200, I think it is, and the learning path for that exam really takes you from zero to hero quite quickly in terms of that. So all of that is free. There's also paid courses available online should you choose to go down that route. And obviously you could use us as MOQ, and there's other partners out there to help you get up and running on this platform. And it's one of the key things we do is we believe that getting the platform set up right, the governance right for our customers, and then helping them build that first application is one of the best ways to learn. Let's call it best practice.
Great. Okay. And another question, probably the last one, just because we're at time. Are you able to share some information on the licensing model for Power Apps? So I know 100%. You covered this briefly.
Yep, absolutely I can. So we have got an ebook which is available for download. We'll share the link with all of you after this. In that ebook, I go into great detail to take the 179-page licensing guide and summarize it into 4 pages of everything you would ever want to know about how to license the Power Platform for your scenario. Obviously, we're here to assist. So if you have a particular interest, reach out to us and we can help you with that. Quickly, maybe want to talk about next steps before everyone signs off. So if you're interested in the Power Platform, you want to go ahead, key things, kind of 4 high-level steps. You've got to understand what the platform offers. Hopefully this session has exposed you to the power of the Power Platform and the types of scenarios you can build. It's important. You've got to understand the licensing benefits. Here to help you with that. Set up a Center of Excellence, right? So the Center of Excellence is this idea that says, we're going to go on this as a journey, as a program. Yes, build your first one as a proof of concept, proof of value, but think about how you get that adoption driven in your environment. Design your approach that's suitable for the environment. Set up the right environments, the right number of users, give people the right level of access, all those good things. From our side, there's 3 things we can do for you. I've spoken about the ebook, which is point number 2 on the screen. We'll send out the link to all of you guys after this. Please go ahead, get it, download it. It'll summarize a lot of what I've said and more. We've got a next webinar. The next webinar is for if you've already gone down this or you've clicked on the links and you want to know a bit about best practices, how to set up a center of excellence, some of those key aspects about being successful with this platform now that you decided to go down this route. And also we offer an app in the day workshop. So really what the app in the day workshop, it's a free, no commitment. Myself or one of my team will come spend time with you, look at your specific scenario and model out how you could best build that using the Power Platform technologies. The output of that is we'll provide you an overall design, what we think it would take to build that, and give you that as a starting point for your first step into that. Free, no charge, happy to spend time with the clients to do that.
Great. All right. Thanks, Piers, and thanks everyone for joining. I think we'll sign off there, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.